Hello, Munbalance, and welcome to my guide on the Island Sanctuary content, added in 6.2 of Final Fantasy XIV. In this video, I will cover all aspects of island life, and give you some good ideas and good practices to take into your own island, so that you can maximize both your profits and your progression through the Island Sanctuary content. I'll leave timestamps down below, so if you're just curious about a single aspect of island life, you don't have to listen to the whole video, you can just feel free to make use of those timestamps. Now, before we really get into things, I do want to mention that this is intended to be casual content, and you can and should go at your own pace, but this video will serve as a guide to help you along with things that you might be feeling overwhelmed with or intimidated with any particular part of the Island Sanctuary. Also, a friendly reminder that if you're in water, you can use control and space to dive into the water without a mount. I'm only putting this here because I know at least 4 people who have forgotten that you could dive into the water without a mount, and thus couldn't gather anything that was under the water. I might have been one of those people. Now, the first topic for discussion is your Sanctuary rank. This is essentially your progress through the content, and many things are unlocked simply by leveling it up. Ranking up provides access to just more stuff all around the board. Buildings can eventually be upgraded, and it's based on your Sanctuary rank. New tools can also be crafted, and they allow you to access new materials that you couldn't access before. As you'll rank up, you'll also get the recipes for mammoth-sized tools, and this will allow you to craft tools for the pathfinders in your island, and they offer to expand your hub area in exchange for the tools to do the job, as well as some of your hard-earned blue cowries. And on that note, when you're starting out, you might be tempted to splurge on this new hairstyle or the new glamour set with your first workshop paycheck, but I warn you now, upgrading your island generally takes either materials or calories, and if you're patient, you'll make so much more in the long run with a fully upgraded island. Try not to splurge too much until you're about a day into rank 9. At that point, there's no real purchases other than the ones that are just passive. Now, you might think that you want to rank up as quickly as possible, but you should consider taking things slow. A whole lot more EXP is rewarded for daily tasks, such as collecting leavings from your monsters, or cultivating your cropland. And while it is technically possible to rank up off of the 10 EXP that you get from gathering alone, this is probably not a good idea. It would take a really long time. The hell with it. I'll show you how to maximize your EXP gain with this. So anyway, you want to look for the trees with the apples. These apples, when you have an axe, will drop both apples and vines. The reason why you want to look specifically for these trees, and you might want to get some of the normal trees too, because you'll also need branches, but the main target is going to be these apple trees, and there's quite a few of them in this area of the map here. There's like 4 on this side of the river, and then 4 on that side of the river, and all you need to do is get like 3 extra things, and it'll reset. But anyway, the reason why you want to target these trees specifically is because their drops can be used for very common crafting recipes. The first of which is the island sweet feed, which you can, but probably shouldn't, feed to your animals in the pasture because there's much better food out there, but you can still craft these, and when you craft them, you will get rewarded EXP, so you're essentially doubling down on your EXP. You'll also be able to make makeshift nets with the vines that you get from these trees as well. This results in basically much more EXP than you would get from just gathering any other material. And you can even triple down by catching animals with the nets that you make. And this will get you some EXP too. And you don't even need to keep the animal. You just go ahead and release it and you don't have to worry about it. But it still rewards you with 20 additional EXP. Now, catching an animal is a 100% chance, so it's not exactly like bonus 100 EXP, and it's still technically interacting with a node. But overall, attacking these apple trees, making the sweet feed and the vine and the makeshift nets out of them, and using those is probably the best way you can force an EXP level up. Although I would highly advise that you don't do this, but I know people are going to do it anyway, so this is the best way that I found to do it. And on that note, the next topic is gathering. Now, gathering is a very common activity that you'll be doing on the island and is essentially required for just about everything. Something to note is that as you rank up, you'll get access to more tools, which will allow you to better utilize certain nodes. If your character just looks like they're picking stuff off the ground, you probably need a better tool for that thing, unless it's some pumpkin seeds on the ground. There's no better tools for those, but this is just for showcase. But if you go up next to a tree or a rock and your character is just picking stuff up, then you probably need a tool, like a scythe, or an axe, or a pickaxe, and that you'll obtain new tools by ranking up. Now, a key part of gathering for a specific item is knowing the limit of broken nodes that can exist on the island. Since as you gather nodes, rocks will break and dirt unpiles, meaning that you can't gather from the same node over and over again. Luckily, there can only be 10 spent nodes on the island at one time. By simply gathering other nodes, you can refresh your previous nodes and essentially make a loop of whatever material you happen to need. And here's some common loops for very important items as you progress the island sanctuary. In the far right side of the island, after you get access to the scythe, you'll be able to gather hemp, and you'll soon discover that you need that stuff for like everything. By working in a small circle around this island, you'll get plenty of island hemp, and you will get some extra nodes too, but that's just to ensure that the hemp nodes respawn. You can essentially just go in a big circle around this beach and gather all the hemp that you'll ever need. Now, copper is another very common material, and basically just across the river from the hemp beach, you have a nice copper loop here on this mountain. Now, note the elevation of this area here. You might want to mount up and get up the mountain, since there isn't a whole lot of copper nodes in this path, but you still need to go up to the top anyway, both to access some of the higher up copper nodes, and also because there is this huge patch of cotton. And this will essentially allow you to refresh your copper nodes. Since all of these are very close together and in a pack, you can very easily just gather 3 of these, and that'll be enough to reset the copper nodes. You only have to gather 1 if you also get the 2 hemp on the side of the mountain. And then when you're done the loop, all you need to do is drop back down. And then at that point, the loop just resets. And while logs are also very important, there isn't as clear cut of a loop for them, and basically they're just around everywhere, and you should just make sure that whenever you see a normal looking tree, you should probably cut that down. Also, something I discovered is that when you're on your island and you have gathered nodes, simply by joining any duty, you'll refresh all the broken nodes. This can be potentially abused by doing something like entering an unsynced trial by yourself, and then just leaving that trial. This will then put you back to exactly where you were, and basically have you set up to gather the nodes right again. Although this is probably a whole lot less efficient than just gathering other nodes, and the loading times kill any idea of this being like optimal lazy grinding. It's just something neat that I found. And on that note, let's talk about what you'll probably use these materials for the most: restraints. Now, these allow you to capture animals and monsters around the island and send them to your pasture. Since this isn't guaranteed, you'll probably fail at catching a lot and have to craft a lot of these restraints. There is also a rumor going around that since monsters have flank positions, that you might actually have a better chance of catching them from behind. But in my admittedly very limited testing, I found almost no difference between catching a monster from the front and catching a monster from the back. Although I did get more evade chances from the back. So when it's a rare monster, you might want to only attack it from the back just to ensure that it doesn't run away, because when you get an evade rather than a notice, then they won't run away and you can try to catch them again. And once the animal is in your pasture, you can feed it and collect leavings from it every day. Each animal has 2 leavings that it can drop. The first one is a guaranteed drop that'll always happen, and the second one is a quote-unquote rare leaving. You can also pet it, but that doesn't do anything statistically. Animals have a happiness and a food meter. When the food meter isn't completely full, you can feed them with one of the 3 different kinds of food. Once feeding an animal, its mood raises to a certain amount depending on the food you've given it. First is the island sweet feed, which you get from gathering apples around the island, and this will increase the mood of your animal by 1 point. but this will also cap the animal out at about half happiness. In order to get an animal happier than that, you'll need to feed it island green feed or premium island green feed. And since both of these raise happiness by 2 points, you technically only need 2 feeds to go from a completely new animal to one that is maxed out in happiness, as long as you feed them the right food. And at which point, once your animals are at the gleeful rank, you'll only need to feed them premium island green feed once a day for them to maintain that level of happiness. As for leavings, animals generate these every day at reset time. If you're not sure when reset happens, it's the first hour on your workshop schedule. The first leaving is guaranteed, but the second one is based on the animal's happiness. In my full field of 20 gleeful animals, I get a rare leaving from roughly 15 of them. So if I had to guess, I'd say the rare leaving rate is about 75% on a gleeful animal, which isn't honestly that rare. But before we move into the farmland, we need to discuss rare animals. Sometimes rare animals will show up that aren't always around. Most of these are simple color changes of common animals, and some are completely unique. In the case of recolor animals, they have their rare and guaranteed leavings flipped, so while a white sheep is guaranteed to give you fleece and may also give you milk, a black sheep is guaranteed to give you milk and may also sometimes give you fleece. Another type of rare monster is a gender variant. An island doe's rare version is the island stag, and a rare version of an island nanny is an island billy. And generally with these rares, you have their milk drops replaced with horn drops. The third and rarest kind is the completely unique monsters, with no relative base. This includes monsters like the alligator, the gooboo, and twinkle fleece. Rare monster spawn is generally timed base, with some monsters being based on weather events as well. For the really rare monsters, you'll need both the correct time and correct weather event to be going on at the same time for them to show up. Now, we know about animals, and we know that in order to keep them happy, we'll have to feed them only the most exquisite of feeds, and in order to make that, you'll need to make use of the cropland. The cropland can be planted with seeds that you find around the island. There are 4 regular seeds that you can find around the island. There's also rare seeds that you'll have to purchase from the gardener mammoth once your cropland is rank 3. A fully upgraded cropland has 20 spaces, and each of these plots will turn 1 seed into 5 produce after 48 hours. Yep, 2 whole days you'll be waiting for crops. Since you can make premium feed out of anything that grows in the ground, I suggest putting 2 of each type of seed, as it allows you the most freedom and allows you to stock up equally on everything. Crops are commonly used in workshop recipes, so having a good stock of produce is generally good practice. Now, once your fields are rank 3, you'll also get options to automate their performance using mammoths. These essentially feed your pets and collect leavings for you, or replant crops the instant they grow from the ground. Now, these features do cost calories, so I generally avoid them. It's 10 calories for animal and 5 per cropland node, so a completely automated farm is going to cost you 300 calories a day. This is notably optimal for cropland, however, as there's literally no downtime between plantings, resulting in slightly more efficiency. Obviously, both of these solutions also get rid of any kind of human error, so as long as you keep the mammoth supplied with both calories and materials, they could do their job. I will note that you do not get island EXP for automated services, so I would really only recommend doing this once your island rank is capped, as collecting leavings and harvesting crops is a major source of EXP. And on the note of automation, let's talk about the main 2 structures that you'll be working with on the island: the granary and the workshop. Starting with the simplest one, the granary is quite simply put, a gathering service. Now, the granary is notable since it's capable of obtaining rare materials, which you won't be able to access any other way. So while they do charge for their service, the rare items they provide are essential for island progression, but also very valuable for workshop to produce items with as well, so they essentially pay for themselves. You can set up a granary to search up to 7 days, but they will come back at the daily reset regardless of how many days you've set, and it also doesn't matter how long ago you've set the request. So you could technically request searching at like 5 minutes to the reset, and then they would come back at the reset with a full backpack of materials for you. Also, since some of these materials are required for certain buildings on the island, I'm gonna go ahead and put a list on the screen. This is all the rare materials that building in your island will consume. Some of these structures are optional, and I've marked those, but most notably the third tier workshops and granaries require granary exclusive mats. So if you want to be efficient, don't craft with these items right away. And that leads us to probably the most intimidating and complex structure on the island, which is, of course, the workshop. And essentially what the workshop boils down to is you are making a schedule for your mammoths to produce items for you. This is your main income of calories on the island, so you'll want to make sure that you're paying attention to market trends in order to maximize your profits. Every item that can be created in the workshop has a base value, and this base value is influenced by a ton of different things. Firstly, the rank of your workshop contributes a small amount, then your groove bonus does as well, but most importantly, the popularity and supply of items. Popularity is decided on a weekly basis and resets with the weekly season reset. Also, the predicted demand is simply what the popularity will be like for the next week, allowing you to plan up to 2 weeks in advance. Much more malleable is the item's supply. This resets daily and is also affected by you shipping the item. As an item is shipped more and more, its supply shifts heavily, and you can end up flooding the market, thereby cutting your profits. Essentially, you're encouraged to diversify as much as you can, and having access to a wide array of materials makes you much better at adapting to fluctuations in the supply of an item. Now, if you're looking at this page and going, oh god, it's a spreadsheet, I'm not happy, please send help, I'll simplify this for you. On any given week, just go ahead and look at the supply and demand, sort by very high popularity, and then go to non-existent supply. If there's nothing here, then go ahead and go to insufficient supply. And this is what you'll be making for that day. Now, as for groove and efficiency bonuses, these are pretty simple to set up. Each item has 1 or 2 categories associated with it, and by crafting it followed by another item that shares a category, you'll get an efficiency bonus. This will produce twice as many of the second item, and also raise your groove rating by 1 point. Groove rating resets weekly, and its cap is based on how many landmarks you've placed on the island, with a cap of 35 being obtainable once you're basically finished with island content. Groove increases the sell value of items by 1% per point, so generally you'll want to boost this as fast as you can by starting out with a bunch of 4-hour crafts, and then save your big value longer crafts for later in the week once your workshop is groovy enough. And all of these bonuses are multiplicative, so if you're curious, here's the math. Note that massive penalty for overflowing supply items. You'll want to avoid that. Given these numbers, if you sold an item with a very high popularity, with a non-existent supply, with a completely maxed and grooved out workshop, you could very well sell something for close to 400% its initial value. Multiplicative bonuses go burr. As for schedules, you generally want to start the week out with a bunch of 4-hour crafts to help build up your groove, and then once that's sufficient, you generally start the day with a 4-hour craft since it's impossible to get an efficiency bonus on your first craft, followed by either 2 8-hour crafts and another 4-hour craft, or 2 6-hour crafts and an 8-hour craft. It doesn't have to be in that order, but that's just how the hourly math works out so that you don't have any downtime on your workshop. Also, if you don't want to think about this at all, you could just go to the Poking Paradise Discord. They figured all of this stuff right the heck out, and it'll tell you exactly what the best item to put up is. And finally, rest days. Now, you're forced to give your mammoths 2 days a week to rest, and personally I like to set these to 1 and 2. This allows me to observe the market trends and supply trends on the first 2 days, and also gives me time to get items that I might need from the granary. It also allows me to maybe get a harvest in before I have to actually start producing items. Now, what you could do is something neat like this, where you put the first week on 1 and 2, and the second week on 6 and 7, and that will essentially give you 10 days of uninterrupted production. I think what a lot of the super tryhards are doing is setting their first rest to 1 and their second rest to 7, which essentially gives you a weekend, but allows you the 1 day of prep, whereas I prefer to have 2 days of prep. Something I should probably mention, but isn't really worth talking about to a great extent, is landmarks. Landmarks can be placed on your island on specific spots. You'll have exactly 4 spots for these at the end. There is a total of 5 different landmarks that you can make. And as far as the game is concerned, they only really care that the landmarks are down. They do not care if they're all the same one. They can be all the same one, it doesn't matter. You just have to have 4 of them placed at the end in order to unlock a certain quest that might give you these really adorable shorts. But with that said, I think that's pretty much everything that you need to know to find success within the Island Sanctuary. I hope this video was informative, or at very least entertaining. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and leave those down below in the comments below. And I would also like to give a shout out to the Poking Paradise Discord. They have done a lot of this research. And while I have done my own testing, nothing compares to the amount of work that they have put in to figure this stuff out. This is honestly a wonderful community activity of completely dissecting something that's supposed to be completely casual. But with that said, I'm also going to give a special thanks to my Patreon supporters. They keep the channel sponsorship free and allow me to make videos like this without having to run mid-roll ads on them or look for sponsorships that honestly make the video worse in my opinion. But with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.